This week on Vaticano, Pope Francis confirms that women can serve as permanent lectors and altar servers.
I think there's an opportunity here for education.
Meet the Dean of the Theology Faculty at Rome's Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, Sister Catherine Joseph, for an explanation. A non-denominational charitable organization, the Open Doors Foundation, reveals how the COVID pandemic has increased the persecution of Christians worldwide. The unity of Christians. Can a Catholic and a Lutheran Archbishop be friends? For this and more, Vaticano starts now. During the Angelus prayer on Omnis Terra Sunday, Pope Francis said that one's encounter with Jesus is never forgotten.
You forget many encounters, but a true encounter with Jesus remains forever.
In the tiny town of Manopello, Italy, 130 kilometers away from Rome, the Holy Father's words ring true in a very unique way. Because here, one can encounter Jesus Christ face to face.
We are in front of the holy face of the Lord Jesus Christ, and whoever believes in the gospel, who believes in the gospel of John first of all, knows that the face of Christ shows you the face of God.
The veil of the holy face of Christ in Manopello is believed by many to be the famous relic of the Veil of Veronica, which some say was brought here from St. Peter's Basilica in the 15th century. The feast of Omnis Terra, in English, all the earth, is directly connected with the relic of the face of Christ. Pope Innocent III in 1208 instituted Omnis Terra so that pilgrims and the poor and sick would be able to look at Jesus' face. On that day every year, the relic, taken from St. Peter's Basilica, was carried in procession to the nearby church of Santo Spirito in Sassia, which bears the same name as the ancient hospital next door. The tradition of the procession had been lost for several centuries, but in 2016 it was revived in Rome at the beginning of the Jubilee Year of Mercy, when the personal secretary of Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, Archbishop Georg Ganswein, reinstated the procession. 5 years later, Archbishop Georg Ganswein leads the procession again, but this time in Manopello.
Today, this expression, Omnis Terra, all the earth, is perhaps as never before shockingly topical. For all the earth is suddenly threatened by an invisible virus. When has the expression Omnis Terra been of greater relevance? I had to come to bring the Holy Face, at least through the television images, to the sickest and loneliest people.
Archbishop Georg Ganswein visited Manopello for the first time while accompanying Pope Benedict XVI there on September the 1st, 2016. This visit was the first time in history that a pope had visited the shrine and opened the relic up to the world.
Pope Benedict commissioned me to also bring greetings he remembered very well from his beautiful and exciting visit to Manopello.
After the Mass, Archbishop Ganswein departed with a solemn blessing to the whole world. A world longing to see the face of God.
He makes reference back to Vatican II. He makes reference.
When we return, Sister Catherine Joseph, Dean of the Faculty of Theology at the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome, explains Pope Francis' recent apostolic letter on the role of women in the liturgy. We'll be back with more on Vaticano. On January the 10th, Pope Francis issued an apostolic letter as motu proprio, entitled Spiritus Domini, confirming women can be both lectors and altar servers. With the letter, Pope Francis amends Canon 230, number 1 of the Code of Canon Law, removing the word viri in Latin, meaning persons of the male sex. Now the canon reads, laypersons of suitable age and with the gifts determined by decree of the Episcopal Conference may be permanently assigned, by means of the established liturgical rite, to the ministries of lectors and acolytes. Some were left wondering if this edit suggests the Catholic Church may open the door to the ordination of women as priests or deacons.
I think Pope Francis made it very clear.
Sister Catherine Joseph, Dean of the Theology Faculty at Rome's Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, explains that this change will not lead to women clergy.
In referencing Ordinatio Sacerdotalis, he's making a clear indication that this is not about sacramental orders, whether of the priesthood or of the diaconate. We all share in something of that priesthood of Christ by our baptism, but that is totally distinct from those apostles and the priesthood and how they shared in the priesthood of Christ. He's referencing that distinction today when he's speaking of a new role that women can have, or rather, a new way they can play out that role, because it can now have a permanence rather than a temporary status.
This apostolic letter serves as a reminder of the call to service that every member of the Church is called to, a call to use one's state in life to serve others. This new role for women is not a new idea, but one that is built upon decades of Church documents, says Sister Catherine Joseph.
He makes direct reference to Ordinatio Sacerdotalis, John Paul II in 1994. He makes reference back to Vatican II, he makes reference to Paul VI, he makes reference to Benedict XVI.
Lectura del libro del Siracide.
Paul VI then in 1972 though gives this specific role as to the laity regarding this ability for laymen to be the acolytes or to serve as lectors. Again, he references Ordinatio Sacerdotalis, where Pope John Paul II made a clear statement. The Pope, the Church, has no authority to change the priesthood being designated solely for men.
Sister Catherine points out that this change should promote the education of the role of lay service in the Church.
So I think there's an opportunity here for education, an opportunity for all of us, and that education is about the sacraments, but for us to deepen our spirituality and our sacramental union with Christ. And also perhaps to understand again more clearly that this isn't about power. Priesthood isn't about power. The episcopacy isn't about power. Being a deacon is not about power. It's about service.
Padre, Hijo y Espíritu Santo, descienda sobre ustedes y permanezca para siempre.
After the break, we see how one non-denominational organization is bringing worldwide awareness to COVID's effects on Christian persecution. 2020 was a difficult year for everyone due to the unprecedented pandemic and the resulting regulations. However, for many people, COVID-19 just added to the problems they were already facing. On January the 13th, a non-denominational charitable organization, the Open Doors Foundation, unveiled their annual report called the World Watch List in the Chamber of Deputies in Rome. The data is alarming because the pandemic has intensified the persecutions. Now there are 309 million Christians living in places with very high levels of persecution, compared to 260 million reported last year. The director of Open Doors Italy, Christian Nani, explains the relationship between the pandemic and persecution.
One method among many is the inability to receive assistance, even if there had been aid from the governments, often the Christians. They were put in the back of the line, meaning they did not receive aid. Basically, they did not receive the food packages or the masks. So that's one of the main dynamics.
Nani says the report shows persecution happens in all Christian denominations. Given this fact, ecumenical dialogue is vital for Christians to stand together for their suffering brothers and sisters, and interreligious dialogue is also one of the ways to tackle ongoing persecutions.
Religious freedom is what is defined as the right of the orphan, so to speak. It is complex, I think, because it is a very complex dialogue in general between different religions, and this, I believe, should push us. We as Christians should foster the building of bridges, above all with other religions, to show our identity. That is, an identity that speaks of love for our neighbour.
Every day, 1 in 8 Christians around the world suffers due to their religious beliefs. Unfortunately, the situation hasn't improved much since last year. According to Open Doors, the first 5 countries with the highest persecution index are North Korea, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, and Pakistan. However, one positive factor is that the societal perception of the problem is beginning to change.
There is an increased awareness. I remember only a dozen years ago when I personally began my business, even awareness in this country, there was much less talk about it. Today it is more of an issue, and also Open Doors is growing a lot. For this we thank God.
The report indicates that the vast majority of Christians suffer in Islamic countries. Italian deputy Andrea Del Mastro delle Vedove hopes that these states will increase funds for persecuted Christians around the world and help Christians remain or return to their homes.
The first priority is to address Islam in the Islamic world, to allow Syrian and Iraqi Christians to survive and return to the lands where traces of early Christianity were. Because if by chance ISIS, whether it is victorious or not, will manage to erase the traces of early Christianity from the lands of early Christianity, ISIS will have won its religious battle against the West, against Europe, against Christians. We cannot accept that.
After the break, we look at the Feast of St. Paul's Conversion and its ties to Christian unity and ecumenical dialogue. The Feast of the Conversion of St. Paul is traditionally associated with a week of prayer for Christian unity. Every year, Pope Francis, together with representatives from Orthodox and Protestant churches, holds a joint prayer service at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome. These images are from 2020. This year, the celebration took place, but on a smaller scale due to restrictions. Ecumenical dialogue has two paths. One is doctrinal, and the other is based on personal relationships. Pope Francis often emphasizes this. In 2019, coming back from his apostolic trip to Romania, he pointed to an example: the friendship between a Catholic archbishop and a Lutheran archbishop in Latvia.
The Catholic Archbishop was supposed to come to the Vatican Sunday evening, and he called me that he would arrive Monday morning. When he did arrive, he said to me, "Excuse me, but yesterday the Lutheran Archbishop had to go to a meeting, and he asked me, please come to my cathedral and lead the worship." This is fraternity. To arrive at this is a lot, and the Catholic did the preaching. There was no Eucharist, but the preaching, yes. This is fraternity.
These two archbishops are Zbigniew Stankiewicz and Yanis Vanaks.
Let us offer each other the sign of peace.
Ecumenical theology is a very special kind of theology, and we did not have resources available here enough. So we mostly concentrate on the other part, on building trust. And we have been working together on many things for decades now. And the Archbishop Metropolitan Zbigniew Stankiewicz is my friend since some 30 years. When he was a young engineer and I was a young teacher of chemistry, we were friends already.
Despite being from different denominations, Stankiewicz and Vanaks have maintained their friendship through the years, cultivating it into a remarkable example of Christian unity.
And we had also an interesting initiative that leaders of the churches, originally those were Catholics, Lutherans, Baptists, but in time the number grew, that we were meeting together somewhere in a hotel or spa somewhere outside of Riga for a few days just to talk and to make friends and build trust with no specific purpose.
It's crucial because each of these three main confessions, Christian confessions, we are too small in number to have, great influence in society. But when we put our efforts together, and we have also concordance in the main principles of Christian values.
One of the most notable initiatives is the creation of the Council of Spiritual Matters at the Prime Minister's office in Latvia. The council consists of leaders from the traditional Christian churches who are invited to give their opinion on faith and matters of morals.
From 2005, we have in our constitution is introduced the definition of marriage, that it's union of man and woman. And some years ago, preamble was added to our constitution, and for the sake of good collaboration, we introduced Christian values inside. In European Union it was pushed out, but here it became possible. Then some years ago, Parliament voted in favor of law who forbade immoral propaganda at school. It was, first of all, inside this idea against propaganda of homosexual relationships as morally allowed.
The creation of the Council of Spiritual Matters is a breakthrough and was something unthinkable just a few decades ago, as the country was part of the atheistic regime of the Soviet Union.
I was baptized during a night in a small village church where nobody was present. I was a teacher in the school, and it was unimaginable for a teacher to go to church, and finally I was fired.
Despite the persecutions and the closure of churches, the spiritual heart of Latvian Christians, the shrine of Our Lady of Aglona, has never been closed.
I remember as an engineer, when I wanted to participate in celebrations August 15, roads were blocked by militia, police, Soviet police, and we entered through forests to arrive in Aglona. They tried to block, but people came to these celebrations, and after the falling of communism, we also restarted our tradition of pilgrimages.
We have a very little practice or experience in pilgrimages. As you know, Protestants are not so keen on pilgrimages, but people like to do something to practice their faith, and so they join the pilgrimages to Aglona. And you know, you cannot just make it up. You cannot start something like Aglona. You need a long tradition, you need special blessings from God to create such a festival. And so our Catholic sister church has managed to maintain this from many years, so we gladly join. Even though the Ascension of Our Lady is not very, so to say, traditional doctrine for Lutherans, so this makes it a bit awkward for us, but anyway, we can pray together at least.
It's no accident that Pope Innocent III in 1215 called these lands the Land of Mary, forever entrusting it to her protection and guidance. The veneration of the Virgin Mary is the stronghold of Latvian Christians and has become a common denominator for their unity. Also that of these two men, archbishops, Christians, friends.